Welcome to another lab session. Now, this lab session is going to be on the Capstone project in our AWS Solutions Architect Associate program. Now, first things to note, we have a budget of 60 USD, and you can see that I've used 2 cents out of the 60 USD. Now, what this means is that if you exceed the lab budget, the lab account will be disabled and all the progress and resources will be lost. So, you need to manage your costs. So some few suggestions to avoid overspending is to launch only the number of EC2 instances that you need, and then also delete resources that you no longer need. In most cases, resources that consume your budget is the compute resources, stock of EC2 instance, RDS, Cloud9, and the NAT gateway instances. So we make sure you stop them when you don't need them. However, if you are doing the lab and then you get to end it or your session timer runs out, right? The session is going to be ended, but the data and then the resources that you created are going to be retained. Okay. If you have any EC2 instances that were running, they are going to be stopped, but nothing gets deleted. So let's get into the overview of the project. So we are going to architect a solution for a social research organization, right? And this research organization provide a website for social science researchers to obtain global development statistics, right? So you can go up and then look for especially life expectancy for any country in the world over the past 10 years. So what's the solution that we are going to architect? We are going to develop a PHP application that runs on an Amazon EC2 instance. We'll create a MySQL database from a structured query dump file, right? A query language dump file. And then we'll update the application parameters in an AWS Systems Manager parameter store. And then we'll secure the application to prevent public access to back-end systems. Now, this is the architecture that we currently have in the lab. So the lab is in one AWS region across 2 availability zones in a VPC with 4 subnets, 2 public and 2 private subnets. There's a bastion host that extend across the 2 availability zones and its security group. There is an ALB security group and there is an application security group as well as a database security group. There's a launch template that has the application data and then an IAM role which we are going to use to create our target group, and then it will be launched into an auto scaling group as well. Now, these are the solution requirements, just like the project overview. It will provide a secure hosting of the MySQL database and then also provide secure access to the administrative user. We'll provide anonymous access to web users, and then we'll run the website on a T2 micro EC2 instance and provide secure shell, that is SSH access to administrators, and then we'll provide high availability to the website through a load balancer. We will store the database connection information in the AWS Systems Manager parameter store, and we'll provide automatic scaling, that is auto scaling, that uses the launch template. So this is a solution that we would want to architect. These are the project deliverables. We'll deploy the PHP application that meets the requirements, and then we'll also submit the diagram that illustrates the solution. And we'll also write a written summary of the design decisions that we made. These are for our personal keeps or for our portfolio purposes. Now, some assets for completing the project: an SQL dump file that contains the sample data, and a zip file that contains the PHP and image files for the example social research organization website. But these files are bundled into a launch template named example launch template, and we are going to use that to architect our solution. So we wouldn't need to download these files, right? So let's get into the AWS console and we'll begin. So now on the management console, I am going to use 3 services, right? EC2, RDS, and Systems Manager. So in EC2, we are going to create a load balancer, right? Because we are to provide high availability through a load balancer. So I'll create a load balancer here. So I'll navigate to load balancer, create load balancer. It is an application load balancer, right? So we choose the application load balancer. For the name, I will use Capstone ALB. It should be internet facing, and should be example VPC. The subnet should be in a public. This one should also be in a public subnet. For security group, we'll choose the ALB security group. Okay, for listeners, I'll create a new target group, and the target type is instances. The target group name is Capstone target group. The port is 80, example VPC. Health checks, I'll change this to 2, and the interval I'll change it to 6 seconds. Okay, and then next. So I'll register the bastion host as a target, because when you look at the architecture that we had, yes, so you can see the bastion host also extends to the second availability zone, right? So I'll register this, include as pending below, and I'll create the target group. Nice one. So I'll go back to my load balancer creation, refresh that, and I'll select the target group. I'll leave everything as it is, and I'll create the load balancer. Okay, so I'll view the load balancer. Currently, it is in a provisioning mode. So let me go and create an auto scaling group. So I'll click on create. This will be Capstone ASG. The launch template, we are going to use the launch template, right? That contains these files that we need, right? That's the asset for completing the project. I'll click on next. For VPC, example VPC, always remember it's example VPC always, and this will also scale the instances in the public subnets. Click on next. I'll attach an existing load balancer, and I'll select the target group for the load balancer. Everything will be left as it is. Go to next. So my group size, my desired capacity is 1. Minimum desired capacity is also 1, but the maximum will be 2. Okay, and I will use a target tracking policy, and it should be average CPU utilization, but I'll put it to 70%. Okay, and then I'll go to next. I'll not add notifications, I'll not add tags, and I'll create my auto scaling group. Great. So the auto scaling group is going to create one instance because my desired and minimum capacity was all 1. So it's going to create one more instance using the launch template. Okay. So if I should come to instances, you can see an instance has been created. All right. Let's see the load balancer. I think it's still in the provisioning mode. Let me refresh. It's still in the provisioning mode. So let's go ahead and create the database that the application will query. So I think I can close this. I'll go to RDS, but first what we need is a subnet group. So I'll create a subnet group. All right, and I will name this Capstone subnet. All right, and I'll say subnet for Capstone database, so DB. The VPC, as always, is example VPC. The subnet availability zones is availability zone A and B, right? And then the subnet now, the database should be in a private subnet, right? Secure. So it should be in a private subnet. So it shouldn't be open to everyone in the public. And I'll create the subnet group. So from here, I can now go to databases and create my database. So I'll use a standard create. The engine is my SQL engine, right? I'll leave the engine version also at default. I'll leave it at production. I'll select multi AZDB instance. Okay. And then the identifier is Capstone. That is the name I choose to give it. You can choose any name that you want. The master username admin, that is fine. For password, I will use Capstone. Capstone. The same thing should also be here. Okay. For the instance configuration, the class, I'll choose a bestable class. T3 micro is fine. For storage, I will use a GP2 general purpose, and the size will just be 20 GB. For connectivity, I will not connect to an EC2 compute. The VPC, I'll choose example VPC, and you can see the Capstone subnet has already been chosen. That's the subnet group that we created. And yes, it shouldn't be accessible to the public. For security, existing security, so I will choose the example DB. So yes, password authentication is fine. I will not enable enhanced monitoring. And then let's go to advanced configuration. The initial database name is Capstone DB. I will not enable automated backups. Encryption is fine. I will not enable minor version upgrade, and I will disable delete protection, and I'll create the database. So my database is being provisioned. Let me close this. The database is being provisioned. Let me go to Systems Manager and go to Parameter Store, and we'll save the parameters, these parameters. Okay, so I'll copy this. I left the endpoints because the database is still in creation mode, right? So we will not we wouldn't be able to do that now. All right, so I'll start from the username. I'll copy this, create parameter. Now username, and the value is admin. Create the password. Now you can get these credentials when the database is done, right? You'll be able to view the credentials. We can still get them here. So the master username is this, and then the password is this. Now we don't have access to the endpoint, so we can wait. All right. So when the database is done creating, then we can also have the endpoint. So let me create the parameter password. So I can just come here and copy this password and paste it here. Okay. And the database name, paste this here. The value is Capstone DB. Create. So we have our parameters saved, right? With the exception of the, okay, I just wanted to confirm the Capstone DB if it was correct. So with the exception of the end point. Okay, now let me see if the instances have passed 2 out of 2 checks. Okay, so if I should go to the load balancer, right? So we are accessing the website through the load balancer. Let me refresh this. It's also active. If I should copy this and then open this, it should open the website of the social research organization's website. So you can see the website is opened. Now, if I should query, this is where we have a problem, right? Because we don't have a database created and we don't have any data. So we have created our database, but we don't have any data in it, right? So we need to give the database some data, right? So let me see if the database, so the database is still creating. So let's wait for some time. When it is done, we'll resume. Okay, so now our database is created. If we should view the credentials again, you can see now it comes with what? The endpoint name. All right, so let me copy this endpoint. And no, let me first copy this, and then I'll create a parameter, paste this here, and the value is what I copied. No, it's this one, right? Is it the endpoint? Let me confirm first. So yes, I think it's correct, but let me just copy it again and paste it over it. Create. So now we have all our parameters created, right? The next thing is to connect to the EC2 instance, right? This is the example app EC2 instance. And as the project said, the connection should be secure. So we can't directly connect into the example app. We have to use the Bastion host, right? We have to connect through the Bastion host. So I'll do instance connect into the Bastion host, and I'll also need an SSH key, right? A key pair to connect to the example app. So the details can be found here. Go to AWS details. So what I'm just doing is that I'll copy the value. So I'll click show. So it's just the same as downloading the pen file and then using your terminal or any SSH client to connect, right? But what I'm doing is I'm copying the value here. Okay, and I will use a text editor in instance connect, right, to create the same key pair. Okay, so labs user dot pem, press enter, and now I'll paste the value in here. I'll exit, yes, and enter. All right, so I've created the file. So the next thing I need is the private IPv4 address. Sorry, so I'll do a chmod 400 labs. Okay, and then now I'll do SSH I EC2 user at, and the IP address of the example app instance. Sorry, SSH I didn't specify the key pair, labs user. Okay, and then now, okay, so it is not connecting, and I know the reason why. So we'll go to the example app, go to security, and the security group of the example app instance, right? And we are going to allow SSH traffic, all right? So you can see the inbound rules doesn't have any SSH rule. So I'll add SSH, and it should only allow to the Bastion host, okay? And I'll save rule. Now I'll go to instance connect, and you can see immediately I added that it has been established, right? So let me just exit this, clear the screen, and I'll enter the SSH command again, and this time you can see that there wasn't any delay, right? And then yes, correct. So we are now connected to the instance. Okay, so let me clear. So the next thing is to check the file, and you can see the file is here, the country data dump file. That is the SQL file. So I'll connect to my SQL. User is admin, and then the password, we'll type it ourselves. So the host, so the host is the endpoint, right? The endpoint of the database. So I'll copy the endpoint and paste it here, and then I'll specify the database name, that is the Capstone DB. Okay, and I'll just do the less than sign, and I'll add the country data. So by this, we are importing this file into the database. Sorry, the Capstone DB should be have E there, right? Enter. The password is Capstone. All right, so the file is copied, right? So to verify, we can connect the database, press enter, and then the password again. Okay, and then I'll do show data basis. All right, so here we are using SQL commands, right? So you can see my Capstone DB is here. So I'll do use Capstone DB. Okay, and then I'll now show tables, right? And now I will say select, right, from country data finder. And this is the data that is in the country data file. So now we have imported this damn file into the database. So it means that now, and then we have also connected that onto the EC2 instance. So what it means is that we can now query on the website. So if you just refresh this, now you can see we have data. If we should pick another query, let's say population, and then submit, you can see there is also data here, right? Pick another query and then the life expectancy, submit, and you can see that is also here. Right, so this is the solution and this meets all the requirements of the project overview. So if we should go to the canvas and now submit the work, I'll click on yes. Yes. So the total grade should be 3. I had already submitted it before, but you see the submission is recorded. So it is generating the submission report and it is also grading. So when it is done, we'll look at the grade. So the lab records the current grade, right? It records your current grade. So we'll be able to see the marks that we'll get out of this, right? So you can see we have 3 out of 3. So the load balancer was found, the application was reachable, and then the application was able to query the database. And also, as part of the requirement, we were supposed to provide what, a diagram that illustrates the solution. So I have this diagram here. All right, so this is a diagram that I have. So the bastion host extends because it was also in the same auto scaling group, right? So it extends to the second availability zone. The ALB, it's connected to the auto scaling group, right? That makes the web instance reachable to the public. And then our databases has been hosted in the in the private subnets, right? Two RDS instances, the primary and then the replica instance. And the parameters are stored in the systems manager parameter store, which are accessed through an inventory app role. So that's basically about the solution that we were supposed to architect or provide for the social research organization. So in case you try your hands on the lab and then you would want to try your hands again, make sure to do this cleanup, as I said, to protect your budget, right? So first, this one won't cost anything, but since I will not need it, and then the next time that I'm trying it, I would want to create everything from scratch. I will delete this. Okay, so this is deleted. I can close this. So for the database, I'll close it, right? And I'll just delete the database. So go to actions and delete. I won't create a final snapshot. I acknowledge this and then now type delete me. Okay, so the database is being deleted. I'll go to the instance, exit this, exit, and exit. Then I can now close this. The security groups will be deleted, so there's no need to worry yourself. So I will now stop the instances and then terminate them, right? And I can do that by just simply deleting the auto scaling group. So I'll go to EC2 and first let's delete the load balancer. So we are just doing cleanups, right? So the Capstone DB, I'll delete this, confirm, and I'll go to auto scaling groups and I'll delete this as well. delete. So we had a target group. We might want to delete that one as well. Okay, and for the database subnet group, once the database is deleted, it will also be deleted, right? But then you can also come back to it and delete it. Okay, so you can see it's not deleted because at least one database instance is still using it. That's fine. So once the database is deleted, it will also be deleted. So once after you have finished all your cleanups, you can come back and then end the lab. And another thing, you can also reset the lab, and then the lab is going to go back to its previous states, like just as before, as if you have not done anything. I think the instruction is here. Where is it? All right, so you can use the reset link above if you ever want to reset your AWS account back to the way it was in the beginning before you ever run sessions of this lab environment. But this doesn't reset your budget. It only cleans up the resources, every resource that you provisioned. Okay, so that is it. All right, so I will wait for my database instance to be deleted, and then delete the subnet group as well before I'll come back and then end it. So thank you for watching. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you in another video for another hands-on.